Good morning, fine ladies and gentlemen. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission, Region 3, Combined Fiscal Year 21 Arts Organization and Arts Project Support Grants Panel. I'm Nancy Stewart, an Indiana Arts Commission Commissioner and Arts United board member from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Today is Thursday, April the 30th, 2020, and we are meeting by conference call and streaming live from a webinar. We welcome applicants who may be listening in today and would like to remind you that you are muted for this review. There is no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. At this time, we would like the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are from in the state. And let's begin with Carmen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carmen Say. I am the Finance Director for Regal Beloit Corporation, and I am in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Thank you. And Maddie.
Hi, my name is Maddie Miller. I'm an artist based in Fort Wayne, Indiana, working in sculpture and printmaking, and I'm also the Office and Marketing Coordinator at MKM Architecture and Design.
Thank you. Elise.
Good morning. My name is Elisa Labas. I get to serve as the Executive Director for Fort Wayne Dance Collective, and I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
And thank you as well, Melinda.
Good morning. I'm Melinda Haynes, and I'm the CEO of the Fort Wayne Literacy Alliance, but I spent 8 years as the director of the Purdue Fort Wayne Community Arts Academy, and I live in Fort Wayne.
Adrian, I'm sorry.
Hey there, my name is Adrian Curry. I'm the founder of the Art Leadership Center designed to systematically develop Renaissance leaders, and I am from Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Thank you, and Melinda as well. Kyle?
Hello, my name is Kyle Pierce. I'm the Assistant Director of Leadership Annual Giving at the Ball State University Foundation in Muncie, and I live in Anderson, Indiana.
Thank you, and welcome, Kyle, from a distance. Jessica.
Good morning, I'm Jessica Shaw. I do project management at the University of St. Francis School of Creative Arts, and I am also located in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm Heather Clausen. I'm the Grant and Program Manager for Arts United of Greater Fort Wayne, who is the regional art partner for Region 3. And I just want to take this moment to publicly thank all of our panelists for all of their hard work and generously donating their time to this valuable, important process. And then I would also like to extend my gratitude toward our facilitator, Nancy Stewart, for her leadership throughout this process. We're also joined today by members from the Indiana Arts Commission staff, so I will let Deanna introduce herself.
Yep, Deanna Postma, the Grants Research and IT Manager at the Indiana Arts Commission. I'm running the tech for this meeting today, so if anyone has any issues, please feel free to call or email.
And thank you all very much. Now we will begin our panel review, and this is how the process will work. I will announce the application, we will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based upon the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please note that the applications do not need to be recapped since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I'll ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We are not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader is finished, I will open the discussion for final comments. Remember, in the interest of time, we are only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. Now, how many times have I already said it? And I'll probably say it a few more. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, that panelist will be placed in the waiting room while the applicant is reviewed. And we will ensure that all panelists are present before moving on to the next application. Finally, once the application has been reviewed by the full panel, we ask the panel to update their scores in the online system. And it is common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion. Those scores save automatically. Now, are there any questions? Okay, then we will get started. The first application is Arena Dinner Theater, and the first reader is Carmen.
Thank you, Nancy. So for Arena Theater, for the organizational excellence, I think that the organization, it's very fluid right now. I think with them currently reviewing and updating the mission statement to really better reflect what they do as they continue to evolve. The board does meet regularly. It's looking at the board makeup is diverse, is inclusive, and equity focused. The one thing that I do notice, just because that's what I do by trade, is the organization has not been operating with a budget, and they operate on cash basis, and it doesn't fully shows long-term sustainability because they're showing net loss in the last 3 fiscal years, which for me is a little bit of a concern. But I think that with the new board, they're instilling some financial discipline and to start developing a budget for a better long-term view as far as strategically how they're going to carry out plans and programs and etc. Community engagement. The organization does engage with a wide range of artists, directors, from students to seniors to different race and disabilities. They do have program in place to make sure that those goals are met. And they also have tools in place to get feedback, constructive feedback for any growth or any changes that they may need for the programming. The next section, arts education. I think that that's more geared toward the directors, the writers, to help them with the creativity and talents throughout the 7 shows that they have throughout the year. The artistic example, it shows the photos of the production, and they're all of high quality, and the shows do add artistic value to the community. Overall, I think that they do present a great programming. The only thing that my concern is the financials, but with the budget development, I think that's a pathway to get there. So that's all my comments.
Thank you, Carmen. And our second reader is Jessica. Remember, something new and different.
Thanks, Nancy. My only comment is on the community engagement portion. So diversity, as was stated, diversity, like a diverse community is absolutely engaged. But with regard to community input, there's a statement in the application that says Arena Theater strives to provide directors, writers, designers, actors with a safe environment to enhance creative abilities and explore talents. I'd like just a little bit more information about how this population is reached in the planning process of the programming. So a lot of these folks come in after that programming's designed. And then they talk about starting a new readers theater. So there could be like an intentional outreach maybe to English or theater programs to get kind of student feedback that are potential performers along the way. Maybe there's a community panel that's open for those that are interested in the new readers theaters, just as a couple examples. But I just like a little bit more information about how they're involved in the programming planning process. And I have no further comments.
Okay, now we will open it to the entire panel for anything that's new or different. Does that mean you are ready to finalize your scores? Okay, then let's go ahead and finalize our scores. Thank you. All right, our next application is the Adams County Economic Development Corporation. First reader is Elise.
Hello. The artistic quality, the applicant does well at summarizing the project and describing a very clear purpose. The strength of the project is pairing up the muralist with volunteer artists. In the community engagement section, the applicant, I would have liked to have seen more narrative to the answer of the 4 different questions. For example, who will be served, perhaps include some demographics, and I think that would have made the response even stronger. In the question about the community's input, I would have liked to have read specific examples regarding engaging other community members. For the idea strategies, an idea to include in an additional narrative is perspectives on inclusion and equity. For example, the demographic percentages of the county, or maybe a little more information about the Amish population. Additional details on the tools and methods for measuring impact would have also strengthened the application. For example, measuring impact through community events and including surveying participants and keeping track of attendees. In terms of project management, the applicant clearly describes and outlines the lead project manager. As not in this particular field, I needed to look up the acronyms CVB and LEDOS. So information, if there was room to use more characters, that would have been helpful as a reader. In the project timeline, I would have liked to have seen more specifics and steps or events leading up to the Mural Fest in September, such as like the planning process or pieces to the project. The budget seems very reasonable for the project, and I would have liked to have seen more details and funding support from local businesses, more specifics.
Thank you, Elise. Our second reader, Maddie.
Yes, so I agree with many of those comments. I think that the muralist paired with the mentees, I think that's a great opportunity to work on some of those idea strategies and see how you can assist those up and coming artists be more engaged in the process as a really great example of idea work. I really enjoyed the mood board for artistic inspiration. It was a great reflection of the community, history and culture, and I think that's a great jumping off point for those artists that will be selected for this mural project. I also would like to see a more detailed project timeline, and I also, the start and end dates did not reflect the planning period, they only were a reflection of the actual 11-day event. So I would just say, when you're planning for your full project, make sure to include those entire dates of the entirety of planning as well. And just seeing more information on the call for entry and artist submission timelines to make sure that there's a clear understanding of the timeline and when those things will be happening, to make sure that there's plenty of time scheduled for those. Those are all my comments.
Thank you, Maddie. Are there any additional comments that are different, that are new?
Hi, this is Jessica Shaw speaking. Let me get my screen back open here. I just wanted to make a note within community engagement that I think social media is really a chance that you can really, really grow to reach diversity within the community and stakeholders, and encourage you to especially look at if there's events created or shared, noting like town halls or engaging with specific audience that you've noticed that you want to grow in this project. If you're connecting with other businesses and stakeholders in their social media, I think there's a lot of really cool growth that could happen there.
Thank you. Hearing no additional comments, please finalize your scores. All right, our next application is the Auburn Automotive Heritage, and our first reader is Melinda.
Good morning. I thought that this was a really terrific and unique project. And even though it's the first year for this specific program, based on what they've done with their coffee and cars, or cars and coffee project, there really isn't any doubt in my mind that it's going to succeed. They've documented it with good research and a thoughtful plan, and to me, they very much appear to know what they are doing. I think it's a very fun mix of, film and cars, which we don't get to see a whole lot of that very often. And I really like that it is family friendly. The movie choices, I think, are very appealing to a wide range of folks. In terms of their community engagement, I was really very impressed how in a not very diverse county, they have identified, engaged, and survey their intended population. That Auburn area is not really racially diverse, but they have identified various ages and socioeconomic levels, and they've been very thoughtful about how they are making sure that all those audiences are reached. The marketing material for this specific one, I thought could have used a little more detail, like a location or something like that, but I'm not overly concerned because their other materials for other things were always very nice. The project management aspect, let's see, I got my notes. I think that they can really work on their track record of cars and coffee, and they show that they have a lot of great planning. I mean, they have a very detailed timeline and some very knowledgeable and qualified people who are working on it. I think that's it. I just think it's a very fun and accessible project.
And thank you very much, Melinda. Our next reader is Kyle.
I don't have much to add. All I'll kind of state as well was I appreciated the detail with the timeline. With a first year event, it's sometimes challenging to see, okay, how are you going from 0 to 100? And I appreciated the breakdown. Okay, here's our goals of each step. And that makes it very easy to understand kind of what their vision is, and it made it kind of easier to see how this could actually come together. So that beyond that, I think everything else is stated.
Thank you, Kyle. Are there any other additional comments?
This is Jessica Shaw again. I just had, again, with note to community engagement, they listed an incredible list of things that they're doing for the museum, but since this program's not happening necessarily there, since it's a drive-in, it's going to be outside and those kinds of things, I would have loved to actually see more information about strategies that they've thought through really specific to this programming. So an example could be they're talking about doing historical talks before the show. So are there ways they could make this more accessible to those that may be hard of hearing? Is it something that maybe there's subtitles or things that they could read, or there's like a program or something accessible there? Also, like you could think through, there might be community populations, especially since Auburn's more rural, that have difficulty traveling to the program. So could you work with like transportation services or senior centers or schools to see if you could even grow more, an even larger audience of those that they're hoping to fill?
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, please finalize your scores. And as we move on to our fourth application, which is Blue Jacket, Jessica, you get to go to the waiting room. Deanna, do you do that?
I do. I'm working on it right now. She is in the waiting room.
Thank you very much. Our first reader for Blue Jacket is Maddie.
Yes. This is an exciting project to build on the momentum that Fort Wayne is having in public art, and also further activating the Calhoun Street corridor leading in and outside of downtown. I would like to know more specifics about how the artists and artworks would be selected for this, as there were not very many details outlining how that process would work. And I was also curious about how those works will be in connection with Blue Jacket. I'm familiar with the Second Chances program and how they work with artists to connect those stories to the artwork presented, but that was not outlined in the grant, so I wasn't sure if maybe that was the same way that they would be treating these artworks selected for this public project. I was also curious about the actual physical scope of the garden area. What space are we looking at being able to look at the feasibility and to complete this project based on how large that actual physical scope is. I would also like to see more specific artistic examples or a mood board or ideas about what that artwork would look like, rather than looking at pieces of work that are from the community that are already created but not related to this project. In regards to community engagement, one of the statements was that we know who we serve, we know who is in our community. We as readers don't know who those individuals are and would love to know more about how this will impact your specific community. And knowing who those individuals are is helpful in being able to know that. I was also curious about if Blue Jacket has met with the neighborhood associations as mentioned to discuss this specific project. I know that they discussed having community connections, but it wasn't made clear if that was, if they were working directly with the surrounding neighborhood interests to work on this project. And I think that would be a great opportunity for community collaboration and really rooting down into that 07 neighborhood about what people might be interested in seeing and being related to the mission of the organization. And then as far as timeline and budget, a lot of that information was related to the Second Chances art exhibition, but the project narrative was more related to the sculpture garden and less about that project. So I was curious to know more about how these are really interrelated. And just furthering that narrative that was provided about the public art project rather than the Second Chances exhibition. Those are all my comments.
Thank you, Maddie. Any additional comments, Carmen?
No, I think Maddie kind of summarized everything that I've thought of. I do think that, for someone who may not be familiar with the Second Chance exhibition, that would be hard to understand because it was a little bit high level, and how that project actually ties into the mission of Blue Jacket. I think it wasn't very clear in the grant itself, but other than that, I don't have any additional comment.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? Okay, then let's finalize our scores, please. And we can bring Jessica back into the party.
She is on her way back in.
All right, thank you. I see her, she's in. Okay, we'll move on to the Children's Choir of Huntington County, and our first reader is Adrian.
Hey there. So I have a response to the artistic quality here, and it's more succinct and straightforward. I thought the organization demonstrated a committed effort to provide its audience a meaningful and impactful quality, artistic, and authentic experience relative to the budget size. The majority of the programming is art-based. They've been doing it for several years. There shows a commitment, and doing things for that long, you get better and better, and it's more enriching each time, which I feel like the application reflected. The marketing materials, social media, web, etc., reflected the community they serve. There's a demonstration of high level of intentional commitment to providing meaningful and impactful experiences. They have a lot of diverse music they use. I thought that was a great way to connect with different audiences, especially if there's not an extreme diverse population in that area, but to use the different music to connect with people. I think it'll pull people in. As far as community engagement is concerned, I feel like the community this organization serves has been clearly identified. There is also a clear strategy for engaging their community in development and planning. Once again, using surveys and having various members from the community give their input. The organization has listed different strategies, IDEA strategies. Once again, I usually am looking for inclusion, and I felt like I was included, even though maybe, once again, the quote unquote ethnic population may not be so high. As far as project management, the organization demonstrated the ability to successfully design and implement the project. Once again, they've been doing it for so many years. I think the planning is effective. I think financial management, the staffing, as well as a way to evaluate their progress and the project. They have several events where they perform all over the community. Once again, they include so many different types of people. They open it up. It's clearly stated that it's important to them. They use different songs to connect with people and expose people to different cultures, etc. I felt like the board is representative of the area they serve. Their history and purpose is consistent with the mission, and their staffing is appropriately experienced for the project. The planning process and timeline is appropriate to me. Thank you, that's all.
And thank you. Melinda, additional comments?
Yeah, just a few. I agree with everything that Adrian said, but I wanted to add that, you know, this organization is working very hard to do a lot with very little money, and they are really succeeding. That's exciting. That said, their financial statements were a little confusing to me, and I wish that they were presented a little bit more efficiently. And also, I really enjoyed watching the videos. That Joyful Singers one was especially heartwarming, but you know what they do and the quality of their work, I don't think it is represented in their marketing materials. And I hope that they are able to kind of, you know, look at upgrading them in the future, because I would like to see them be more representative of what they're really doing, which is fabulous.
Thank you. Are there additional comments? Then let's finalize those scores, please. And we will move on to the Fort Wayne Community Schools Foundation, and Jessica's our first reader. Jessica?
Yes, sorry, I'm just switching between toggling tabs here.
That's all right.
Okay, Fort Wayne Community Schools Foundation. With regard to artistic quality, it's very strongly demonstrated with the program, especially throughout the year that they run their program in this application. There's a variety of certified music teachers that are providing instruction with a really clear mission. I would like to see more information about how this program's run for a couple of years now. So how past summer experiences are influencing this upcoming year's planning. So there's strong data that showcases growth and success of their program throughout the academic year, but what are the specific goals of the summer programming and how is that success measured? So that could be collecting surveys or from participants or parents, and maybe there's a way to collect that data within planning and engagement to further enhance the growth specific to the summer. Community engagement. This program is serving an incredibly diverse group of middle school and high school students from low-income families. And so this program absolutely exemplifies the idea strategies talked about. Marketing materials are also really strong in showcasing the strategies of the programming. It is noted in the application that they're regularly taking and incorporating student feedback and instructor feedback, but I want to know what that feedback is. So what is the information that they're gathering and incorporating? Is it just anecdotal? Is there hard surveys with quantitative data that they can collect? Just a little bit more information there. And then as far as project management, there's a really well-qualified project lead and instructors to staff the summer programming. With the timeline, it's kind of the same thing. I'd like to see notes of like, when is your marketing and recruitment going out? When are your instructors contacted? When it mentions like school parent meetings. So when are those held kind of throughout the summer or prior to the summer planning? And I want to see that information, again, really specific to the summer, even though there's such great work happening throughout the academic year, and that absolutely influences it, but just to strengthen the application a little bit.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And our second reader, Elise.
I have no other new comments. I agree with what Jessica said.
Thank you very much. That was efficient. Are there any other additional comments?
I have one comment. I think this is a great program and it was a great application, but I didn't see a lot of detail about the summer camp, and that's what the budget was for. So I was a little bit confused about that.
Are there any other additional comments? Okay, thank you. And let's finalize our scores, please. Okay, the Allen County Fort Wayne Historical Society, the History Center, our first reader is Kyle.
I really appreciated looking at the purpose and the project clarity. I thought they did a very good job of explaining what the project was, because it's the Fort Wayne Historical Society, but it's a specific event or specific series, really. And I appreciated the great detail they explained. What is this, and kind of who the community is being served, and that can be somewhat challenging when you ever have a series where if you don't track the month-to-month event attendance, it can kind of, we have people come. They did a very good job of saying, hey, here is who is being served. And I really appreciated that. I also like the fact that like I said, they tracked who's attending, and they've also made a really good effort to engage the voices of the community they're trying to showcase. It's very easy when you're trying to showcase, especially when you get into heritage-based things, to kind of say, this is what we think needs to be discussed. They've done a very good job to make sure that they are showcasing things that are both important, vital, or vibrant in terms of showcasing this part of the community, but at the same time, making sure that they're always keeping connected, and making sure that they're not kind of overstepping in terms of showcasing a part of the community that might not want certain things showcased, or they did a very good job of respecting the audience or the community they're trying to share the history of. I really enjoyed that. One thing that I kind of would have liked to see more of is kind of the run up to the event. I know it's been going on for 13 years, so sometimes it's easy to say, well, we kind of have it in lockdown of what we need to do up to the event, but they kind of just said, okay, from December to April, planning and coordinating completed. Well, what's that process look like? Even though it might have gone on for years, I would like to have seen what is that, and what do you do to get to this point, so we have a better understanding as we're sitting here to know, okay, hey, this is how they do it, and kind of showcase to us that's the process. But beyond that, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Maddie is our second reader. Anything new or different?
Yeah, so I would like more specifics for the budget, a clearer breakdown of what is happening there, specifically with those admission fees. What is the breakdown? What are the anticipated number of attendees for those fees? And what does that admission fee actually look like, to help understand if it's priced too high or too low, and understanding that breakdown as how accessible it is. Also, just kind of understanding things like what is applicant support in that budget. As far as cash income, I wasn't really sure where that funding was coming from. I would also recommend, they mentioned informal debriefing after events with participants and audience members. I would just consider, with those individuals participating in those programs, engage with them in a formal way. See if you can collect more data and reflect on the series as a whole, rather than informal briefings after each event. And then also there was a mention of gauging nearly 100% feedback from visitors, stating that they enjoyed their experience or learned from the experience. I would ask, how did you gauge 100% feedback from those attendees and participants? As experience in working on events, I think it's really hard to gauge that amount of feedback. So maybe if you're saying that you did receive that amount of feedback, how did you receive that feedback so we can understand what your project or process was in gaining that? So that's all my comments.
Thank you. Are there any other new, opposing, different kinds of comments? Okay, then we're ready to score the Allen County Historical Society. And we're ready to move on to the Parkview Huntington Family YMCA. Always let me know if you're not ready to move on. Our first reader is Elise. I can't hear.
For artistic quality, overall, the application is clearly written and detailed. A strength of this application is the incorporation of feedback to help inform current and future programming. Arts exposure is an important and valuable purpose. In working in the arts and as a grant writer, I'm curious if the applicant has explored other benefits of dance and music that would positively impact the students. The artistic examples demonstrate a high quality project. For community engagement, the applicant does very well at writing a narrative that incorporates quantitative data through percentages and specific numbers of individuals served. I would have liked to have seen this carried into the response for question number 3, idea strategies, for example, including diversity demographics of the students served. The tools and methods to measure impact were all quantitative. I would have liked to have seen qualitative tools and methods such as a parent and/or student survey. In terms of project management, the applicant described the project manager well and has a solid activities timeline that is achievable. The budget is reasonable. I would have liked to have seen more detail in which foundations made up the foundation's grant line item, as well as splitting the line item under expenses for admin and fundraising. The financial statements demonstrate capacity to implement this project.
Thank you. Second reader, Kyle, anything different?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Oh, I like that. Are there any other comments?
And Nancy, I have just one comment, and it's regard to the project management portion. I would have actually liked to see just a bit more information about the marketing and registration of the program, just some of those finer details. And then particularly the program, they mentioned launching a new ukulele portion, and that's not mentioned anywhere. So if there's a new portion of the program, I really want to see details about how are you going to recruit for that? Where does that fall in your timeline?
Okay, are there any additional comments? Then please update your scores. And why don't we do 2 more and then take a break, or would you prefer to take one now? All right, then we will move on to the Kikiyanga Festival, Decatur Main Street, and our first reader is Carmen.
Thanks, Nancy. This festival it's been going on for 16 years. It's really have a very well-planned, well-written project planned, and given with the experience that they had, the purpose mission itself is great because it celebrates the history, the culture, of the area. And the photos that was presented to us was, provide great detail, give a lot of colors of, what that festival, does, with all the programs that runs through during the festival. They do have adequate feedback surveys that is provided to the enactors, the people who participated. So again, you know, with a very well-established festival, you know, they have everything, you know, very well planned, it's in place already. As far as, you know, project management, you know, they put a lot of time and effort in really showing, you know, how things are being done, you know, who is on the committee, you know, how festivals, how the activities are happening throughout the day. A full year, kind of 12-month rolling cycle was presented in the grant application. I really appreciate that because you can see from, you know, even though they start with a festival, but then they jump into the planning of the following year. So I appreciate that, seeing the full cycle of that. I think that they're doing a lot of things with a little budget, but I think it's great. And I think that overall it's a very well written grant, and I really do appreciate all the details. That's all I have.
Carmen. As our second reader, Adrian, do you have any additional comments?
Yes, I feel like it's a great educational tool. I also feel like it's well planned with the enriching activities. I feel as if the marketing didn't showcase Native people or Indigenous people, and we're speaking of the Kikianga. And although I do understand that we're celebrating the heritage of that particular location, it is in the name of the Indigenous people, and there is no representation. And I think that's critical. And I also feel like there's no representation within the artists. So to have a quality, high meaning, impactful, you know, authentic experience, that Indigenous perspective is very important. And also within community engagement, I feel the same. I feel like there should be a little bit more outreach to those Indigenous peoples, considering when you're dressing up like a particular people who do have a culture, it's important to discuss those things with them, I feel, so they don't feel like they're being made fun of or anything of that nature. And that's all.
Thank you, Adrian. Now I'll open it up to the entire panel for additional comments.
I do have one additional comment. I was curious about how some of the performances, including the festival, how they relate to the historical significance of the overall event. Items like these show choirs and things like that. What are they performing, and how does that relate to the overall theme? That's what I would just say to add.
Thank you, Maddie. Anything else? Going, score then, please. Okay, Memorial Park Middle School. The first reader is Maddie.
All right.
Real quick, Memorial Park Middle School, we have a conflict of interest.
Oh, we do?
Elise.
Oh, I'm sorry, Elise.
Yep,
Okay.
give me one moment to get her out.
Thank you for reminding me. That's because the dog is chomping at the back door and I'm gonna have to stand up and let her out. She couldn't wait.
Okay, she's in the waiting room.
She's in the waiting room. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Let's go ahead with our first reader, Maddie.
They clearly have a history of doing this event with a detailed timeline and community support. It's really great to see the collaboration with Big B Sweetwater, the PTA, and those local artists and musicians. I think it's really great that they are connecting with these local musicians for these teaching sessions to really give these young music students an opportunity to see people that are performing regularly in the community and have really taken this as a career pursuit to really give those students an example of what it can be like to actually pursue this as a career. I would also just say I would consider more ways to engage the wider public rather than just the school audience and those parents. Although it's great to engage those individuals, I think that with the inclusion of these local musicians and things like that and being a free event, I think it's a great opportunity to actually engage the community of Fort Wayne and the region in that this is a really great, wonderful jazz opportunity to see this live music performed by the local musicians in a free event. So that's all my comments.
And thank you, Maddie. Jessica, additional comments.
Give me just a second to toggle back here. I did have a comment to add with regard to community engagement, just as a suggestion. So mentioning targeting like the larger community, a way to do that potentially is to like include alumni from the program or invite upcoming band parents that aren't yet part of your band community, so to speak, but just to engage them as you're planning. And that's my only comment.
Thank you very much. Are there additional comments? You're sure? All right, then let's score these. And if we can bring Elise back in out of the waiting room, please.
She's back in.
And why don't we take a break? You guys are doing an amazing job. I'm really impressed. We haven't had any duplication. And what do we say? Heather, 8 minutes. How's that? Thumbs up.
Good.
I got a thumbs up. And then we'll come back at it, all right? I'm not turning anything off. I'm just leaving you all there, okay? Perfect. You were all quick. Do we have everybody back on? Is everybody back? Connecting to. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I wasn't. Are we ready then to move on to number 11?
Yes.
The Miami County Economic Development Authority. Adrian's our first reader.
Hey there, we are back, and I would like to start with saying that this organization involves artists and vendors to create an authentic German and Christian experience. And the marketing materials I felt reflect the community they serve. The project is clear and uses past experience to support the current year. There's intentional commitment to providing meaningful and impactful experiences. As far as community engagement is concerned, I feel like there is a clear strategy for engaging the community in the planning and development, using surveys, etc. And also input from community representatives. There are intentional IDEA strategies. One in particular that I liked was the involvement in the African-American churches to kind of bring that gap between German and Christian beliefs together. The evaluation plan is clear, using the feedback from surveys, sponsors, and vendor responses. And then we have the project management. I felt the budget size is appropriate for staff and activities. And the process and timeline are appropriate. The lead staff is experienced. And that is all.
Thank you, Adrian. Elise, second reader.
Am I correct? We're reviewing the Miami County Economic Development Authority.
Yes.
And this is the application about the Cole Porter Festival.
No, it is Chris Kindlemart.
Okay. All right. So my comments are very much in line with Adrian's. In terms of the financials, I would have liked to have seen those financials to evaluate capacity to implement the project.
Just a note for clarification, anyone who is answered yes to if they were a school, a university, or a government entity, which would be inclusive of the Miami County Economic Development Authority, were not required to submit financials this year.
Thank you for that clarification, Heather.
Now, are there any other comments?
I have a comment regarding community engagement. So I think there's a really, really fantastic plan listed about how to recruit different communities to come to the event. But I would have liked to see a bit more information about how are these different communities that you're recruiting and you want to target planning with you. So are there town halls that could be used to gather information just as a next level step so that the event really shows creative placemaking and engagement, all of those things, but engaging those communities ahead of time, not just in the recruitment chunk.
Thank you. Any other additional comments?
Yeah, I do. I think that the festival being fairly new, I don't remember seeing any description on how German history and heritage relates to the town's history. I think that would be helpful to understand how the festival is significant to the town. And that's my input.
Thank you, Carmen. Anybody else?
Nancy, I'm going to jump in really quick for Deanna. Maddie ended up having to call in and she's looking to figure out how to unmute. So I just want to see if we could resolve that to make sure.
Sure.
If she has comments, she could.
Thank you very much.
Get in.
I am all good, so I appreciate that.
Perfect.
Thank you, Heather and Maddie, and all of you once again. Are you ready to score this one? Then let's go ahead and do so. And we're ready to move on to the Noble County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Kyle is our first reader.
So starting with the marketing, I felt like the marketing examples they included were for the organization, not so much the actual event itself. And I would have liked to have seen more marketing for the event itself. Now, I will say that the Facebook link did go towards the event, but the actual like documents that were sent seemed to be more for the overall organization. I enjoyed seeing how with the kind of both the artistic quality as well as the community, that they're hosting these the artist events to kind of extend, even though it might be a one-day event, they're extending kind of the broadness of what's going on. However, with the actual 11 mural event itself, I was trying to see what was actually going on that day. I didn't see much about yes, it's the mural was going on that day. What's going on around that? And the answer is it's not. There's nothing really specific that day. That's fine. But I just kind of felt like everything was talked around the event, but not saying, hey, this is what's going on that day or days. And then also, I would like to have seen more with the decision making process by the steering committee. It refers to the steering committee will make decisions on who's selected and which are selected and how decisions are made with where to go to with the pieces of art and all that. I would like to see how are those decisions being made? Is there some kind of criteria? Is there people who volunteered for, hey, we want this, or we want this type of piece at this location, and that's already been made at this point, or kind of how is that process going along so we can understand that. I also would like to have seen a little bit more about how the voices of the community are being heard. It talks about how individuals of the community are involved on some of these boards. It didn't really showcase how those individuals were selected. It was a volunteer base. Were they appointed? Why? Not why were they appointed, but were there a specific reason why certain individuals were asked to join? With the timeline of the event, I enjoyed seeing that. I thought that was rather detailed. I would have liked that when looking at the expenses, the breakdown of the expenses or just overall finances with the cash income with the Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership. It's a rather large sum, and it says it includes sponsorships and grants. I would like to see what's that breakdown. Was that one thing? Is that multiple things? When you're putting something in parentheses like that, I would have liked to have seen what are you referring to. And then with the breakdown of expenses, it seems like this is, compared to the budget they have, the operational budget of the organization, this is a very large event for them. I would like to have kind of seen a note of where are they in the process of acquiring these expenses? Are they being paid by someone else? Just be based on what they've shown in the last 2 years of their budget. I would like to see a somewhat explanation of how are they getting to the point where they can handle this. So besides that, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Our second reader, Carmen, anything additional to add?
No, I don't. It was very detailed.
Thank you. All right, now it's time for any other additional comments.
Nancy, this is Melinda. I have a comment. It's kind of about all of the ones for the Mural Festival, which I think is a great thing. I felt that this particular application did a really great job of showing what they have done in the past. That made me feel really good about what they have with the Mural Fest coming up. And they're very strong. Their marketing in that area was great. It's hard to talk about Mural Fest because there aren't a lot of details coming. But I thought that this application really did a great job of showing how capable they are of making it happen.
Thank you. Any other comments? It's nice to see your face back on, Maddie. All right, then let's score, please. You guys are doing great. All right, we are ready to move on to Rediscover Downtown Peru. Elise is our first reader.
So for artistic quality, the applicant lays out the project and its purpose well. As a reoccurring project, the applicant does share that past surveys have been used to inform the festival in the following year. Providing examples such as 100% of participants enjoy Dave Lowe's performance, and so the committee has invited him back for upcoming festival would add value. The applicant has proposed a diverse smattering of Cole Porter related content that covers that festival goers and Cole Porter fans would seem to really enjoy. In terms of community engagement, the applicant mentions that the Cole Porter Festival would serve Peruvians, which would include the elderly and youth, as well as Cole Porter fans and professional musicians. These populations do fit and would like to have seen additional details, such as city or county demographics and potential demographics from surveys or ticket buyer information collected. The applicant does well at marketing to provide access to the festival in a 3-county area. They also do well at including the elderly and low-income population through free tickets to the main stage performance. Having the option and resources to make the historic home handicap accessible is commendable. It would have been nice to have read if all festival participant venues are handicap accessible and including number of people served as a method for measuring impact. In terms of project management, with 27 years of this festival being offered in Peru, the applicant has a well laid out and informed timeline. The overview of the new project manager is clear. It would have been helpful to know how many people serve on the volunteer committee and if any one of those volunteers have served in the past. The project budget is well considered and reasonable. Financial statements of Rediscover Downtown Peru demonstrates the capacity to support the project.
Thank you, Elise. Melinda is our second reader here.
I have nothing to add.
Nothing to add.
No, great project.
Okay, are there any other additional comments? Anything else that's new?
I do have one comment. There was a statement made about providing a ramp with Tuesday's notice for one of the spaces that was not accessible. And I would just say, providing that ramp, I think you should do just no matter what, and because that's showing a priority of providing access to all attendees without having to request that access.
Thank you.
I also had a comment regarding project management with specifically related to the timeline. So it mentioned this wide variety, the application mentioned the wide variety of outreach to targeted communities, particularly with like seniors and low-income housing. And so I would have just liked to see where is that outreach happening to those communities. So I know you're thinking of them in mind when you're planning this, but when are you actually reaching out to maybe senior centers so that they know this information or low-income housing? I just think that's really important to include since you're targeting them, making sure that's in the timeline.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other comments? All right, then let's please finalize your scores. And we are ready for the Steuben County Tourism Bureau. Jessica.
For artistic quality, this application demonstrates strength in collaborating with individuals and the artist consultant that's overseeing the project. The mural's selected through a juried process. It's painted by professionals. For the artistic example that was listed though, they mentioned that Alex Hall would have more ideas regarding the possibilities of the project. I would have loved to know what those were for the sake of this grant. And even if you could have listed, at some point this project was pitched to the larger community. So even if you had imagery or PDFs of something that noted where this creative placemaking was modeled after, I would have loved those details. Community engagement. The project is intentional about reaching out to low-income youth, as well as community arts council, nonprofit, artists, government leaders. There's a really wide range there. A step further here would be to include community polls or town halls to help build this engagement with the project for the regional area. Regarding the marketing, the project website found on the postcard was really clean. It's full of vibrant imagery. I would have loved to see this extend to their social media, connecting that same platform and building community engagement. That could be done through Facebook events or headers on social media, just to make the project easier to find. I think social media sometimes is underused, and it's such a valuable asset to continue to engage with targeted populations within the community. And then with regard to project management, it's really, really well organized here in this application, with collaboration of the various stakeholders and community activators. So I just want to commend the detail-oriented presentation of this.
Thank you, Jessica. Adrian's our second reader.
Hey there, I don't have much to add. I think Jessica was very thorough. I would like to say that it's wonderful to involve the various youth groups and also the detention center. I think that's really important, and it speaks volumes. Thank you.
And thank you. Any other additional comments? Opposing points of view. Tried to find a new word there. All right, then let's score this one up. And as we move on to the University of St. Francis, we have Jessica, who gets to go to the waiting room. But Jessica, don't leave. We want you to come back. Deanna is...
He is in the waiting room.
He's in the waiting room. Don't let her leave. Okay. The University of St. Francis School of Creative Arts. Our first reader is Melinda.
Great. Well, I always love reading about the Jesters. I think, let me find my notes here. I think the Jesters is an amazing program, and it's reached underserved people effectively since its inception. It's a long-standing program, and it's a leader in reaching out to people with disabilities, and it's a model for other programs to follow. And it makes a difference for those who participate and for those who are in the audience. And I really like how it continues to evolve and improve. And especially, I love the new Mirror Lake players, the improvisational group. And I love that they are bringing guest artists from Second City to teach the Jesters. I think that shows, you know, their commitment to finding professionals for this group of traditionally underserved people. In terms of community engagement and marketing, I think that, you know, the Jesters defines community engagement and IDEA, and it doesn't really get any better than this. I think they're masters at reaching people with disabilities, and they fully identify their goals and their plans. They have anticipated all the challenges. I couldn't think of any other challenges that they could have identified, and they have plans to meet them head on. And one of the things that I thought was especially great was that they film the show and then they screen it afterward for the participants. I just thought that was a really wonderful way to make sure that the people who are participating in it get to see what they did. I think that's a great idea. And in terms of project management, you know, St. Francis has fostered and encouraged this program for years and years, and they give a lot of in-kind support, but it's also really gratifying to see all the substantial support from other local and national funders. You know, that speaks to the fact that it has taken a lot of hard work over the years to sustain and maintain the program. And I think that really shows the constant quality of the program and its positive effect on all of its constituents.
Thank you very much, Melinda. Maddie is our second reader. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just have two comments. I just want to emphasize of how great of an example of idea strategies this project is. I think it's a really great example for all other projects. And I would just say an idea to consider is how could you make your marketing better serve populations with disabilities? I've seen a lot of organizations starting to use captions on videos, things like that, that make their marketing materials more, serve those populations in a more impactful way. So that is the only idea I could really think of. So great.
Thank you, Maddie. Are there any other additional comments?
This is Kyle.
Yes, Kyle.
Yep. I thought they did a great example of really diving into the project description. So I'm not from up in that area, as well as was not familiar with this program. I'm in the nonprofit world, but not really so much in the arts. And so I felt like, walking in, I had no idea what it was, but I felt like through that project description, I went through, a very quick overview of 41 years. And really kind of left that project description going into the rest of the project proposal with a really strong understanding of, okay, what is this? What are they doing? Kind of a good overview of, where they've been. And I thought that was a great example, especially as you look for, future proposals that, if you're doing multi-year projects, I don't say this as a slight to anyone, but it's very easy to think, oh, we've been doing this for a long time. Everyone knows who we are. And this is a great example of still taking the time to explain who you are, to make sure that someone that might be on this board or some other kind of capacity, you make sure that you explain to them very well, this is who we are, even if they're very well known locally. I also, the only thing else I would point out though on that same topic is with the timeline, it was a little broad-based. Now I understand it's a very, some of these projects are, if you were to go through the entire timeline, it'd be extremely detailed. If you're talking about, multiple months, like April through August, July through August, you're talking about multiple months. Sometimes it would be nice to see, for someone like myself that might not be so familiar with these events, what does the project activity timeline look like? Even if it's just month to month, that would be a little helpful. But overall, I thought this was an amazing proposal, and it is a great example of showcasing, making it very easy for someone like myself to come in, know what you do, and leave it feeling I can truly understand what this organization does. So,
thank you, Kyle. Are there any other additional comments? Okay, shall we do a drum roll before we score the final applicant? If you could do so, please. And Deanna, if we can bring Jessica back in.
She is back in.
She is back in. All right. This certainly does conclude the Region 3 Combined Arts Organizations and Arts Project Support Grants panels. If you have any questions, please contact your Regional Arts Partner Representative, Heather Clausen. And thank you all so very much.